Hey there everyone, Doogie Manheimer here with something new. I've been wanting to create a scripted series of sorts for a while now, so here's my first go around at something I'd like to call the little things about, with the inaugural video being on Sonic Frontiers. Now, let me be clear, this isn't a review for the game, but more so a specific look at certain things, little things, that I personally really enjoyed or didn't think too fondly of. They may range from something that everyone and their mom is raving about or ragging on, or it could be something that only I would take the time to praise or eviscerate. There will be a little review at the end for my overall thoughts on the game, but obviously this won't be a review, like I said. There will be spoilers throughout, so if you do care about that, please be warned. I will be having gameplay from all throughout the game. So with that being said, let's look at the little things about Sonic Frontiers. Please be aware that all of my experience and playtime with Sonic Frontiers is on the Nintendo Switch version, which isn't as quote-unquote optimal as, say, a PS5, but ran and performed much better than I would have hoped. Pop-in happened all the time, but I know that's also an issue on the various platforms. Ran at a solid 30 most of the time, and it, like I said, it performed great. But I'm not here to talk about the technical performance. I am here to talk about uneven surfaces. One of the most jarring, confusing, and potentially exploitive things to happen to you in Sonic Frontiers is when you're nonchalantly just boosting your way over and Sonic runs right through an anthill, and suddenly you're just 10,000 feet in the air doing a bunch of tricks at a very rapid pace. This is amazing. This happened to me so many times throughout my playthrough where Sonic just decides, oh, the ground I'm running around is actually at like a 2% incline or a 3% decline, and he just starts flying. Whatever momentum occurs as you step through or step on like a stone just accelerates Sonic into the air, and it is the funniest thing and just so awesome to witness. At first I was annoyed when this happened to me, like, stop, I don't want to be in the air, just let me run, just let me be magnetized to the ground, don't be bothered. But after a couple other times of this happening, I just really started to enjoy this bizarre lapse in physics and just let loose with my air tricks and just look across the island as I was just 10,000 feet in the air. I've even seen people on Twitter using this exploit to do map traversal at an insane level, getting to hard to reach places or getting to the top of mountains or just crossing over islands within like Chaos Island, for example, and getting to where they need to go so quickly because of this, and it's so fun to watch. I've also been guilty of trying to use this as it pertains to collecting the memory tokens, so I wouldn't have to do the 2D side-scrolling challenges every time, there's a token for me to collect. And there's this little comic that I found on Twitter too that encapsulates just that feeling. Shout out to Sludge Tunes for this. Okay, so clearly in order for me to reach that memory token, I need to go through that 2D platforming section. Or I could get a running start, hit this tiny incline on the terrain at like 600 miles an hour, go flying, and just hope I snag it. Heck, this was even shown off in the gameplay trailers before release, and I remember seeing there's no way that's still gonna be there on the release. That just looks like a little bug that happens whenever he just went over the hill. Like maybe there is a little bit of momentum and he finished running up this hill at top speed, so there was a little bit of air that he got before he landed on the ground. But there's no way that's going to end up staying there, but I am so glad that they didn't try to fix that. It's just something that's quirky enough to enjoy when it randomly occurs, but it's also something that you can abuse its power with, much like all the amazing clips that still happen with Breath of the Wild and its amazing physics, where you can just literally become God and go anywhere you want, kill anything you want in your path. It's absolutely incredible. But of course I mentioned Breath of the Wild when mentioning Sonic Frontiers and talking about it. These games will always be compared to each other, and poor Sonic is being perceived as riding Link's coattails, which, sure, of course it takes a lot of inspirations from Breath of the Wild and other open world games of the sort, but why does that have to be a bad thing? I mean, it is canon that Link and Sonic are friends, so maybe they were just giving each other advice. Either way, love the things that Sonic can do with this wacky maneuver he can do. Now, something I mentioned a couple paragraphs ago is how I try my best to use these speed bumps to try and get these memory tokens or collectibles, and a big reason for that is because there are too many forced perspective challenges throughout every island, especially Chaos Island. That's when it gets the worst. Not that all of these challenges are bad, mind you. Most of them are quite fun, testing out your platforming skills, quick response time, and I mean, heck, half of them just happen randomly and on your adventure, so you just go through it for the hell of it. But I find it infuriating when I'm running around and see something to get, so I go over to whatever little platforming thing I have to do in order to get it, and here comes the 30th short little 2D section I gotta do. Not the big deal the first few times. Like I said, you randomly traverse the island and come across them. That's just the way the game is, and that is at its best when it does that. But it slowly starts to annoy me when it's always a forced perspective 2D challenge, especially after I just finished doing a 2D cyberspace level and then I have to do more 2D side-scrolling challenges. Like, stop! Please. Or when I'm boosting through or jumping onto a platform thinking, oh, I'll just use this platform to get a little more momentum and keep jumping and go forward. But no, accidentally fall into the platform and whoop, the camera just changes and oh no, now I'm doing a forced 2D challenge and I have to complete it in order to get out of this perspective or go through the entrance. Then it just completely halts whatever I was doing. It just totally disrupts me, and as dumb as it may sound, as how little this affects the actual experience, it's called the little things about after all. And I just, really just grinds my gears whenever this happens. Like, I don't know what it is, but it just ticks off something in my head. And for further explanation as to why this might bother me more than some people, I did not grow up with old school or classic Sonic. One of my first Sonic game experiences was Sonic Heroes, and I'm super nostalgic for that game. It's still my favorite Sonic game purely because of that. I've replayed it. Yeah, it has its hiccups and glitches and is weird to control sometimes, but I love it so much. And so I'm a 3D boy all the way. And while I have played most of the old games like Sonic 1, 2, 3, and Knuckles, and the newest 2D, Game Mania, I do like them. I just prefer 3D Sonic, but that can be a discussion for another time. Now, most Sonic games have a gimmick that makes each game interesting in their own right, be it good or bad. Like how Colors has the Wisps. Generations brought another Sonic into the mix. Forces let you make a freaking character and play as them. The gimmick that makes Frontier stand apart, aside from being an open zone, is the Psyloop. This ability lets Sonic basically draw whatever he wants. The main use is to use it for combat, to fight enemies, and to solve puzzles. But of course, people are going to draw obscenities among us, and some have even shown some excellent calligraphy. Very impressive stuff. Other little tidbits about the Psyloop 2 that I think are amazing is how a certain symbol, when drawn, gives you an unlimited boost for a short amount of time. Then this, symbol being the infinity symbol. It's pretty awesome and very easy to do, especially once you reach your ring capacity and get Sonic's flash on screen for the real extra fast boost, and then you do the unlimited boost, you are flying through this map. And another thing that's awesome about the Psyloop is that random items spawn when you do circles and stuff like that. Like, more than likely you're just gonna get a bunch of rings. So if you do short little circles with the Psyloop, a bunch of rings will just pop out and it'll magnetize to you if you do the Psyloop again. But it's not just rings. Memory tokens can pop out of there. It's just a nice way to quickly gather coins, get your infinity boost, as well as a handful of items that you normally need to do platforming challenges for. And I just think that is super cool that the Psyloop can do all of this. So if you're a couple of tokens short to talk with Amy, Knuckles, Tails, Sage, just do a little spins in front of them. It might drive you crazy and you might look like a whack job doing it in front of them. But it's easy to try and roulette yourself some items instead of trying to look for some. Now, speaking of memory tokens, the reason you're required to collect them is to bring back your friends from cyberspace and be able to talk with them, like little side story convos, so to speak. When Sonic first finds his friends on each island, some of the distorted energy holding them into cyberspace infects Sonic when he frees them, like a little, matrix, I don't even know what to call it, just red cyber energy that just is starting to take them whole, take them hostage, I don't even know. And once you get to Rhea Island and activate the 6 towers for some excellent lore, mind you, this game has crazy good lore and is a captivating story, I think. Sonic starts to fade and succumb to this infection, eventually turning completely black, seemingly lost to cyberspace, and looks like he's turned to stone, basically dead. His friends then give him their life force so he may come back and, complete the last island. And in turn, they then get sucked into cyberspace like they were originally, except you can't even see them or talk to them anymore. But my big question is, what was that all about? I mean, I understand this is what gives Sage the understanding and the knowledge and compassion to, actually want to fight with Sonic towards the end of the game and actually be companions with him. But what was the point of that? I mean, what was that whole plot line about? I mean, I understand that this gives Sage the understanding and knowledge of what Sonic means to his friends and vice versa by this happening, and Sage gaining some fondness for him as well so that she can help him with the end and free the island and the Coco from its shackles, but what else does it do really, other than just be a really unnecessary kind of plot device? It is implied that each infection gave Sonic a new power, which happens every time he saves one of his friends. But I saw it as just like he saved a friend so he got a power, not that this infection gave him more power, and then it eventually just kills him. It would have been cool if, when completely absolved or absorbed by the cyberspace, that he's transported to wherever the end was residing, and he has to escape and be able to finish the last island. Or an opportunity comes where you can take control of Knuckles, Amy, Tails, Sage, and Dr. Eggman to try and find the last Chaos Emeralds from the last island and free Sonic, or something to that degree. It just seems like something of a missed opportunity for that kind of a storyline to just crumble the way it did. I mean, does it hurt the narrative or game in any way? Absolutely not. Just something that seems underdeveloped and could have been more interesting than it was, especially since it was shown off in the CGI trailers leading up to the game, which will be our next point of contention, with good and bad. Now, the CG trailers and gameplay trailers were rough at the beginning, especially the IGN first showcase that really didn't put this game in a good light, so to speak. It looked interesting for sure, especially seeing the scope of it, but it really did not do much in terms of Sonic fans seeing what you could do as Sonic other than just slowly walk around and climb around a tower. But then escalated quickly into banger after banger, more intriguing things after the next, just taking notes about anything and everything that this game's doing because we've never seen it before, or it's interesting to say the least to be like, this is where they're going with it. And one of those things was the corruption in Sonic's arm at one of the CG trailers. I believe it was the one within the Nintendo Direct. And that, like I'm saying, like this game had so much intrigue and mystery going behind it. The cyberspace levels, the different islands, the potentially somber story, and they did an amazing job being able to encapsulate that within the CG trailers and the trailers in general. Bravo to Marza for being able to make these beautiful trailers. Now this applies to the prequel comic too, that Sonic social media had posted weeks before the game launch, as well as the blissfully animated Knuckles prequel that showed how he got trapped onto the island in the first place. Everything was so gracefully done, including the first Super Sonic in a CG cutscene since Unleashed. Like, are you serious? That was amazing. But the one thing that really ticks me off about these, other than, the corruption like I was speaking of earlier and how that really ultimately led to nothing, but it seemed like a really big thing, is that where are they within the game? Like, yeah, you can just look them up on the internet and watch them to your heart's content, but what happened to having a vault or an extra of sorts that contains the cutscenes, music from the game, concept art, character illustrations, renders, or even the CG trailers? And I know some of that stuff has been placed into the digital deluxe version of Frontiers, and that's great for those that were able to get that version of it, but why is it only limited to that version of the game? It seems kind of crappy to lock out that kind of stuff behind a certain iteration or, SKU of a game rather than having it available to all players. I mean, yeah, it's normal to have art books, CD samples, music tracks, whatever it may be, behind a pre-order bonus, and some people miss out on it, and that's, not fair either way. And it's a normal sort of practice, but why isn't there any kind of vault? It'd just be neat to have all of these promotional trailers, comics, animations, all in the game to celebrate it, and keep it all under a nice tidy bow for the game itself, because it's all for Frontiers. And also, as a side note, as far as I'm aware, almost all, and if not all, of the scenes in the game are in-engine, and it's very impressive because it looks great. But why isn't there any actual CG trailers within the game? It's just a weird observation I made, like looking back on it, that all the CG was made for trailers going into the game, but not for the actual game itself. Just an interesting note. And also too, the little scenes in between where they find the Coco, which ends up being, you know, relatives or ancient beings of chaos, which I think is super cool. Those cutscenes when they fade to like a brown, black noir, almost kind of Western looking filter. Those cutscenes look amazing. Those look like they're almost CG just because of the way they're toned. And the one specifically in Chaos Island where it's Sonic and Tails reminded me a lot of the storybook cutscenes, which I really like and enjoyed. But yeah, other than those few instances of it looking really pretty, nice and different, there really isn't anything much other than just in-engine scenes, which personally is a little odd, but it is what it is. And last, but certainly not least, not by a long shot, Supersonic. God, what a way to elevate this form and make it feel relevant again. We haven't had Supersonic as a necessary end goal to obtain by story means since Sonic Generations, and even then, it was really just a way to celebrate Sonic's 20th anniversary. It wasn't really like a, oh, we have to have the Chaos Emeralds to win. That wasn't since Unleashed. But sure, you could always play as Supersonic in previous games too. Like Generations, for example, was the story version, but there was a reward for collecting all the red rings in Lost World and Colors, as well as just the downloadable DLC in Forces. Now, let me get my two bad thoughts out of the way about Supersonic. The first thing is that the true final boss, the end, really doesn't use Supersonic in a meaningful way. Sure, you could argue that it wasn't Supersonic's fight to fight, and it was for Sage, but every other boss we faced so far, it just seems like a glaring omission to end this game without having a last go with Supersonic. The QTE after the fight is stunning. That shooting star sequence, what a beautiful way to do that. But it just doesn't feel like it was enough spotlight for Sonic. Granted, right before the true final boss was a regular Titan battle versus Supreme, but I don't know, it just feels like something else could have happened and should have happened. Also, the final boss being a bullet hell was not something I was expecting, and I wasn't really fond of it at first, especially because prior in like 2 different islands you do the hacking mission, which is basically the same thing. So I was like seeing this happen in real time and thinking, oh, it's just the hacking mission, just on a bigger scale, and it felt so far out of left field. But it was different looking back on it, and I did enjoy it for that aspect, especially since it was more of a Sage fight anyways. And there are claims online saying that Sega didn't give Sonic Team, enough budget or enough time to be able to finish this game, so maybe it could have looked out and played out different. A lot of people saying that Riot Island is the biggest offender to this, because it's obviously just a lore dump. It takes you 30 minutes to be able to finish that island versus all the other ones taking you at least, 3 hours or so. So maybe it was supposed to be on a grander scale. This is where my second point of contention comes out, and that's, I'm glad that it kind of ended the way it did and played out the way that it did. Because I don't know if having Supersonic go through 5 different islands for a final Titan battle each time would feel too repetitive or start to lose its cool and hype factor, because now you're expecting it to happen. Now, actually playing through the game, that could have been super far from the truth. I was hyped for every single Supersonic battle every time I knew it was coming up. But especially that last Titan fight against Supreme, I just felt like that was very much the weakest of the 4 Titan battles, and I could feel myself sort of not as hype and excited because it was, it was another Titan battle. Maybe the battle itself just wasn't as intriguing as the other ones, but I obviously think that Sega didn't give Sonic Team enough time and budget to be able to complete the vision that they had for the game. And the last one, Oranos Island, being very similar to Kronos Island, but I'm not sure how much could have been different in the final product if they had given them more time and budget. It could have just been the way that they wanted to do things originally, but either way, it's still a really good product. But onto the positive, which is literally everything else. Frontiers make Supersonic gathering the Chaos Emeralds a necessary task to move from island to island and face against each Titan. And if you have not seen these battles, I'm going to put my reactions and gameplay to each of the Titan battles in the video. I'll link it in one of the cards up here, just because each one of them was an absolute spectacle. Every one of those could have been a final boss in any other Sonic game. and the way Sonic just flies through the air, he feels so free. Seeing these colossal size differences between him and each Titan, especially the Wyvern when you fly around the entire island, just seeing, I ran around all of this. We are now just flying through this casually as I beat you and pummel you to the ground. Being able to use all of your normal skills and combos, but with the added golden flare of Supersonic, just makes it an absolute joy to watch before your very eyes. Especially his clone jutsu when he does when he finishes a combo. Like, that's so freaking sick, dude. Now I know I mentioned it earlier too with the Psyloop, but being able to do special traps and finishers for the Titans when you perform a Psyloop is just mwah, so cool. The cherry on top of this whole thing though is the music that plays when you face a Titan. Like, are you freaking joking me, dude? Bringing in Mary Kirk Holmes from 2 Octavia, Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens, and Tyler Smith from Danger Kids, back from the Infinite theme song. I mean, these epic themes just blew me away, and I couldn't help but stop before every boss battle began, just to get a taste of what this music was bringing me, banging my head, just really taking it all in. And I was in utter and complete serotonin shot straight to my brain. I mean, Sonic always kills it in music, and this is no exception. Shout out to Nate Wants to Battle for the killer ending theme as well, but that boss battle music was just, Sonic Frontiers made its mark on everyone, even people that I even watch on YouTube that don't post about Sonic or talk about it very much. Were posting videos about their reaction and their fight with each Titan battle because of how much of a spectacle they knew it was going to be and that they saw people wanted to see more of. And it really just left a mark on everyone. Supersonic and boss battles are best with metalcore, hardcore guitar solos. Just every time I got into my car, I immediately turned on one of those songs, volume all the way up, and put these themes on full blast. And I need more of it. I just need it to continue the way it's going. It's so awesome. Please, more of this. Just like with Adventure 1 and 2 and Heroes. I missed that so much. Now, to wrap things up, Sonic Frontiers really gave the Sonic game franchise a new horizon to look upon. Now, of course, this game isn't without any faults, as is any game, but what it sets up here really gives me hope that the next games to come will just improve upon what they did here, and hopefully be even more confident in its style and its gameplay so that we can get rid of that boost formula and fully embrace the 3D space again. Or, at the very least, remaster and remake the adventure games with this sort of blueprint. I love Sonic Frontiers, and I know the community mostly likes it as well, and that's amazing. Glad that the Sonic game series can have a win. And especially with the movies, the comics, this game, and the Netflix series, the Sonic sweep continues. Hey, thank you for watching. This is the first time I've ever really done a video with a script, or at least a loose script beforehand, before I dove into some thoughts and do editing post, an actual speaking thing, since I'm so used to just talking and playing at the same time. Doing this kind of thing just really steps into new territory for me. As you can say, I'm going to new horizons as well. So I hope you liked it. If you do, give me a like, please subscribe, and let me know down in the comments below what point of contention you agree with, what point of contention you don't agree with, what little things you really enjoyed or didn't like about Sonic Frontiers. Just let me know. I'd love to hear what you have to say, and maybe we can have a conversation down there. Who knows? But I will be back with this series. I want to make it a series anyway. The next episode, or video, my wife thinks it's funny when I call videos episodes. The next one I want to do is focused on 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. I finished that game on my own time. I'll have to record some footage so I can actually edit it here in the future. But I had an absolute blast with that game, and I want to be able to do a little things about that as well, and other games that I play and on my own time or for the channel, just to keep this series going. But with that being said, like I said, thank you for watching. Hope you liked it, and I'll be back in the future. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving break, or celebrate whatever you celebrate around this time. I hope it was joyous, and I'll see you next time. See ya!